And
Is it working?
toggle. Recording.
All right. We are here. Welcome to Side Action, episode 88, episode 19 of season 3. I'm Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and on YouTube. So, Action, you can see there's something that came in here.
New threads.
We have
Nice.
schwag. We have schwag. I don't know if you can see this, America, but my sister and family gave me some stuff, and there's enough for everybody, at least Action and I. Maybe some giveaways later, but these shirts turned out great, man.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It really pops against the black background, and it's like our name's up in bright lights on the marquee.
Exactly. We got to get some with, maybe I'll put names on the back too or something. But
there you go.
There are a couple different sizes, XL, L, and medium. So, we'll see. I'm excited for giveaways. And these pint glasses turned out really cool. This is the official logo, of course. And yeah, there's only water in here, but I should put some vodka in here to, commemorate the occasion.
Yeah, maybe after dry January. I don't know if you're participating, but I'll wait till February 1.
I would say drier January. I have gone out and I will go out. So I'm definitely trying to lean up. I'm doing my workouts, the mace ball. I think we talked about that. So I'm feeling good, but it might be tough, 100% dry January, but I respect it. I respect it. So
just in time for the postseason. Got to keep those minds fresh. It's tougher to pick out winners this time of the year, Wegs.
Well, not for us last week, though, buddy. We had a hell of a week. I mean, personally, I did well. I think overall I went 4-1 because we could talk about that in a minute. But I did some live betting in that last game and caught one, didn't catch the other. But, we had some good picks last week. So hopefully the people that did listen extra for Donnan listen this week and get some more picks.
There we go. Yeah, a very solid week. I definitely ended up in the green as well, or the black, as they say.
Right.
And hopefully we can keep it going here into the divisional round.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into it. First, let's touch on the title game in college. I put that up top because it was such a blowout. Alabama just took care of business, and they really won this game in the first half where they scored 35 points in the first half or something. Yeah. They're winning going away 52-24. I mean, obviously the running back for Ohio State got hurt on the first drive. Maybe that hurt their chances, but they covered that 8.5 and actually just ticked over, that 74, 75, whatever number you got. They got to 76, but as it slowed down, it was getting a little bit dicey there.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you played the full game total. I think the game played out just like you and I discussed. Both teams got off to a high flying start in the first half and went way over in the first half. And then Alabama kind of lengthened their lead and they sat on it a little bit in the second half. So much so that I actually fell asleep. So I was glad I just stuck to that first half total. That was an easy winner. And Alabama walked away with all the cash on the night.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it's hard to say if this is the best Alabama team we've seen. They went undefeated, which is only the second time a Saban team's done that. Definitely got some revenge for being out of the playoff last year. So we'll see. They're going to lose 6 or 7 first rounders, but they always reload. They're always awesome. So, But Ohio State, tough one, but not ready for this team.
I think I read Alabama has the #1 recruiting class going into next season, so certainly going to reload. Ohio State will be there next year too, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into that wild card weekend recap in the NFL. I mean, there was a lot of great games. I mean, it was an exciting weekend. Let's start off with the first one, which maybe, I don't know, it's probably the best game, and we'll see. You had the Bills. They were hosting the Colts, your Colts, and we talked about this game. We were on the right side of it. The Colts really probably should have won the game. They were up 10-7 late in the first half. Decided to go for 4th and 4 after losing 3 yards on a run. Didn't score. Then the Bills go down and score and actually took the first half, maybe cover the first half line. Built a pretty good-sized lead, but Phil Rivers, man, he acquitted himself great. Threw 309 yards, 2 touchdown passes, got him close, but they ran out of time, especially with timeouts, and there was a challenge in there ended up losing the game 27-24, but did get the cover, and the game just kind of went over the closing line. It was, man, Vegas set it up right. It was 51 when we were talking about it last week. I think it closed about 50, so it did tick over on the total.
Yeah, I think the books got middled in that game a little bit. I think it even opened as high as 52. So the 51 was probably a bad landing spot for most sports books here in the US. But I really think that Frank Reich did not do the Colts any favors with some of the decision making, especially in that first half. Going for it there at the end of the half, while was the right call in practice, I think it was really the third down call with the sweep out to the left that that ended that drive, and ultimately they paid for it. They were chasing those points throughout the second half, and ultimately going for 2 down 14. I know a lot of people still question that mantra, but they got in the back door, so to speak, with the late touchdown.
They did. And obviously, it's the first win for the Bills in 25 years, especially hosting in Buffalo. So, and they're going to host another game this weekend. So we'll talk about their opponent in a minute. The next game was the Rams. They went up to Seattle, and it was a really interesting game. The Rams, we love the Rams in this game. I didn't end up doing the money line. I'm sure you did. But the Rams went up, and despite starting John Wolford, who got knocked out on like the third play of the game, had kind of a neck injury. It looked pretty bad. They bring in Jared Goff and his cigar thumb. I don't know if you saw the replays. The guy's thumb is like twice the size of normal. He played fine, and the defense just completely shut down Russell Wilson. They took a pick six to the house. In the end, they win the game outright 30-20. They covered the 3. It does go over the total, but a lot of injuries for the Rams come into this next week.
Yeah, that going over there was probably the 2 calls I got wrong first half and full game. Had the under in both of those spots,
Sure.
but it was mitigated by the Rams money line without a doubt. And
Absolutely.
I was pleasantly surprised with how they played, even despite losing Aaron Donald for most of the second half. They were able to hold down that Seattle offense. And the Rams just have a ton of question marks going into this week with all the injuries starting to pile up. It was clear to me that the Rams decided that Wolford was the play, give or take Goff's injury status. I mean, he was clearly, obviously able to play. So I wonder if that was just a coaching decision. Any thoughts there?
I know they kind of avoided it, right? They're trying to, they tried to say, well, we're going to make a game time decision. After the game, they were saying, we did what's best. He wasn't quite ready, but he was suited up, and they didn't have a third quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if Goff goes down, like they say, with this injury, and then they're playing an emergency quarterback, which I don't even know who that was. So interesting situation.
Definitely.
But they get the win. I mean, I love this defense if Aaron Donald plays even against the Packers. I just don't know if they can score enough in that game. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Next game, this was a really intriguing game. Tampa went up to Washington, the Washington football team, the feel-good team of the century. They started Taylor Heineke, who originally the line was a little bit lower when we were talking about it last week. When he was announced the starter, it ticked up to 10, so they were 10-point dogs at home. And originally I stayed away. I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to do. This kid balled out, man. He played really well, diving for the pylon for a touchdown, even though Tampa was up, the 2 scores for a while there. But they got in the back door too, cover the lose the game 31-23, but get in the back door. And this game shockingly went over. This was not even it was kind of surprising to me with that defense. Washington's D couldn't stop Tom Brady.
Yeah, the Buccaneers offense did play really well. Tom Brady, 381 passing yards. And surprisingly, Taylor Heineke had a great game too. I think that was my biggest takeaway from this, is that the Buccaneers defense really made Heineke look like an all-star out there. And a lot is being made of the coaching staff in Washington and why they didn't identify him sooner in the season. But I think the questions really need to be pointed at that Buccaneers defense.
Yeah, and that's we'll talk about that, in the matchup this week, if that plays a factor. But good for the Tampa's line holding up against that, what I thought was an elite front four. Now, granted, again, this one I didn't actually bet this game, but we kind of talked about it. I like this side quite a bit, but a little disappointing that they couldn't get it done. But either way, it was an exciting game. This one was interesting. Ravens go to to Titans, and it was a very different game than we saw during the regular season. This game, the Ravens had, they played this team, and it was a really high scoring affair. Neither defense could stop each other, but in this one, it was a low scoring game. This is one of the unders for the weekend. And Derrick Henry got completely shut down by that Ravens D, 40 yards rushing on 18 attempts. And they were up early. The Titans were throwing the ball early, 10 zip, but they slowly but surely, like an anaconda, kind of strangulated the Titans offense. They didn't do anything in the second half. And Lamar Jackson goes over 100 yards rushing, looked incredible. And they win, cover, and then they hit the under in this one.
Yeah, I think Jackson really got off the playoff schneid early on when they were down 10-0. I was very worried for my bankroll and my bet on the Ravens because historically this team has not been prepared to come back from deficits like that. But credit to Harbaugh and the coaching staff. They really stuck to that game script. And in the second half, they scored on the first drive, I think, and really just started pounding them with Jackson. He broke a long run to go over his rushing prop, thankfully. Right. And from then on, it was just the defense that took control. So a great win for the Ravens.
One situation that we should probably talk about, and we'll allude to it later in a different game, is, Vrabel, who's usually a pretty, not say savvy coach, but he's usually not conservative. He decided to punt in a critical situation. What was that, about 8 or 10 minutes to go in the game? And they punt the ball down 3, and then they end up giving up a big drive that basically ends their game. I mean, they lost by, 6 in the end? But that was a call that he's probably going to, he was scrutinized for it, of course. But it was weird that he decided not to go for that situation. I think it was 4th and 1, maybe from like the, 42 or something like that. I know Henry wasn't getting the ball and doing much, but that really cost him.
Yep, no doubt about it.
The next game was really not that exciting. It was the Saints. I went over to Suter Rainmaker's place for the first time, and we hung out. We watched the game, and thank God the Thai food was good because this game was awful. The Saints and the Bears. The Saints host the Bears, and the Bears backed in the playoffs. They probably shouldn't have made it. But this first half, they kind of had a shot. They were down 7-3, hit this reverse pass thing, looked like they're going to get it, except dude dropped the ball right through his mitts, and they really didn't get close to the end zone until the end of the game there. And we're getting dominated eventually in the second half, 21-3. But they got this late score, which was really interesting. I didn't bet this game. I stayed away from it personally, but the closing line was like 11, right? It was minus 11, I think.
It was.
And a lot of the week it was 10-10.5. So they're trailing 21-3. This game's over. They go on this 90. They did a goal line stand. The Bears goal line stand against the Saints. And, Breeze didn't fully extend that ball over the line. They reversed that call. They go 99 yards, score on the last play of the game to Jimmy Graham. He made an awesome catch, by the way. But then they didn't catch the extra point. And Suter and I were sitting there because he live bet it. He was at the 11. Plus he had some other stuff going on. And the total, too, they didn't go for 2. They didn't go for 1. They just walk off the field shaking hands. We were like dumbfounded. But apparently, since the Diggs catch in 2018, that was the reversal of this rule where if the point does not matter to the outcome of the game, they do not do it. Whereas in a regular season game, they would have kicked the extra point, and this would have gotten, at least within the original number of 11 for a push or something.
Yeah, push. And that late drive squandered a bet for me, too. I had Jimmy Graham under receiving yards prop. Yep. And he basically didn't play the whole game until that last drive. And I think he had the catch right before that and then the touchdown catch, which put him over his receiving yards prop by 1. So it was a remote throwing moment for me as well. And then Graham just ran straight down the tunnel and into the locker room.
Yeah, I'll tell you what Suter's bet was. That's right. He live bet it 30.5. Yeah, it was 30.5 right before the Saints' final drive. So it looked like they were going in to score a touchdown. He's good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nope. And then on the other side, they get it. Boom. Just ended up short with without the extra point. We were just crazy. Anyway, that was the only excitement in the game was Suter's.
Yeah, right. No doubt about that.
Now the last game was a game for the ages. I don't even, I grew up. I'm sure you probably remember it. You were younger than me, but the great comeback. The Oilers were blowing out the Bills, and the Bills came back to win with Frank Reich at quarterback. This game set up for that. Whereas the opening play of the game, Steelers snapped the ball over Ben's head in the end zone, touchdown Browns. Okay, spot him 7. Then another 2 turnovers in the quarter, picks. They're down 28 to nothing at the quarter. I mean, it was unbelievable. And it wasn't like the Cleveland was just massacring them, but at the same time, I don't know what was going on. Eventually, the Steelers do come back in the second half. They get it within, what was it, 12? It was a goofy number. They were down by like 25, and they got it to 12. They've got the ball, 4th and 1 in plus territory. Or no, it wasn't plus. It was like 45-yard line. But they don't go for it. They had all the momentum in the world. And then Cleveland scores a touchdown, and then again, kind of extends the lead. This total, 48 to 37 was the final score. The Browns obviously win the game, cover the 6, and it sails over the total. They went over themselves, but what a crazy game, huh?
Yeah, it really was. And I aided by 3 first quarter turnovers by the Steelers.
Right.
They were quickly in a 28-0 hole. And I kind of checked out after that, to be honest with you. I was casually watching, but not really paying attention. And I don't really know what more to say about it. You certainly have to give some credit to Stefanski and the game plan because
Sure.
they were ready to play in that game. And I really wonder what the outcome would have been had there not been those early turnovers.
Oh yeah. I mean, surprisingly all season the Pittsburgh hasn't been able to score. They haven't been able to move the ball. In that circumstance when they're trailing big, Ben, I mean, threw for 501 yards and, 4 touchdowns, but unfortunately he had the 4 picks, right? I mean, that just kills you. This was the game I was live betting action. So when they went down, I think it was 14 to nothing. I hit 8.5. They were plus 8.5 then. But then they went down 21 nothing. I got it again at 12. And I thought, I'm going to win both of these at the end there. But they just kept giving up touchdowns to the Browns. So I got one and not the other. Still, I'll take 4-1 for the week, but still, it was crazy, crazy game.
Yeah, it sure was.
Well, let's go into the divisional previews. This is going to be an awesome 4 games that we've got here. I'm pretty excited for it. We'll do the same kind of format as last week. We'll kind of introduce the game, and then I'll look at the injuries that unfortunately I didn't update today. I updated on Tuesday. So let's go first. We've got the Rams going to the Packers. You've already talked about where you're on this one, but this game's at 4:35 Eastern on Saturday. It opened at 7. Green Bay -7, 46-point total. It's right about there. It's 6.5 now. 45.5-point total. Let's review the injuries really quickly. There's several on both sides, but mostly the Rams. Aaron Donald is questionable with these ribs. I mean, he's probably gonna play, but he's gonna be hurt. So, that's different. As you mentioned, Walford, it looks like he's gonna be out, but he's questionable right now. Cooper Kupp with the knee, that was the critical injury that I thought for this offense, from last weekend. But Whitworth was also limited earlier this week. And finally, David Edwards, the guard, is also questionable with his ankle. Whereas the Packers they've got guys on the defensive side, which may help the Rams. Kevin King at cornerback with his Achilles was limited this week, but he did practice, as did Zadarius Smith. And then Simon Stepaniak has a knee, and I didn't even put his position. So probably a defensive player.
He's on IR. Offensive lineman.
Offensive lineman. Okay, good. So it sounds like I know where you're going with this. So what are your thoughts on this one?
You do? Oh, okay.
Well, you've got it here as Green Bay
I wrote it down.
6.5 and the best bets. So I'm assuming you want them still, right?
I actually did update.
Sorry to jump ahead, America.
I did update the sheet this week, and you forgot. Maybe you didn't forget, but it's been a week or so. David Bakhtiari.
Oh yeah, he's been out. Yeah.
All-world. I think he's the highest paid left tackle in the game. He is out with a knee injury and will not return for the playoffs.
Yeah, so, he's an all-pro, right?
Absolutely. Certainly not a helpful injury for the Packers passing attack, but despite that, I think the Packers are the play here for me, and it's more so to do with the other side of the ball than anything else. Aaron Donald certainly looks like he's going to play, and he is a game changer on that side of the ball. And Jalen Ramsey, we talked about last week. I have every expectation that he's going to lock up Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
But the Packers have other wide receivers, MVS on the outside, and Robert Tunyon is
Sure.
had a
Tight
great
end.
season at tight end. So I expect that the Packers will be able to put up some points in this game on that side of the ball. And on the flip side, I just don't see how the Rams are going to score. Um, Even with Jared Goff in the lineup playing, I mean, he clearly is not right. I think he only had 9 completions last week for barely 100 yards.
Right.
And the bigger handicap here is just Jared Goff playing in the wintertime. I think in his professional career, he's played in 2 games below freezing, and he has thrown 0 touchdown passes, a completion percentage of 47, and 5 interceptions. So this is shaping up to be a very brutally cold game in Green Bay, and I'm not sure that Jared Goff is going to be ready to play. He was raised in Southern California, Wegs.
Was he?
Yeah.
He doesn't
So
know where the sun sets or
mhm.
rises, but he. So, I tend to agree with you. I think that given the Rams' injuries, normally speaking, I would definitely be on the Rams here. I think that's a big number in a playoff game, and you've got the number one defense going.
Mhm.
The uncertainty with obviously Aaron Donald, who's just an incredible player, and then obviously missing Cooper Kupp possibly, or if he's going to be limited. It's tough though. I definitely like the under here. 45
Yep.
and a half seems like a lot of points. I don't see the Rams matching score for score. I kind of see this game playing out where Green Bay is going to score maybe on their first drive or early in the game, probably another one in the third quarter. This game's going to be like 17-3, and it's going to be one of these games where the Packers don't have to do that much offensively to win this game. So I'm with you. I just don't know if I'm going to bet the game. I haven't yet. I certainly would. Originally my take was, oh, 7. I'll take 7 with the Rams, but
Mhm.
now it's, I hear what you're saying. Now at 6.5, it's more favorable to the Packers anyway.
Yeah, there are a couple of 7s on my screen. So if you do like the Rams side, have to lay a little extra juice there, but certainly could do it if you're willing to pay 115 or 120. And
Right.
the other point that I failed to make at the beginning was Matt LaFleur used to coach Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
He's from the McVay coaching tree, so
Sure.
certainly have every expectation that he'll understand Goff's tendencies a little bit better than other opponent coaches might.
Right. Do you think that there's any advantage that McVay did coach with LaFleur for the defensive aspect of it?
Yeah, I do, and I believe that these two guys in their offensive creativity are going to have some tricks up their sleeve too. We may see them go into far reaches of the playbook to have some interesting plays drawn up. So that does scare me off the total a little bit, just knowing that there may be some scores just out of the play calling abilities. But
Sure.
I definitely like the Packers at 6.5, no doubt.
All right. I'm not going to stop you. I'm just not going to do it. So the next game at 8:15 Eastern is Baltimore's going to Buffalo. Buffalo opened up as a 3-point favorite at home, 50-point total. It's 2.5 now, 50.5-point total. This one I'll review the injuries quickly. There's not as many as I said, but there's some guys. DJ Fluker, his knee is still questionable. I saw that Marcus Peters, he was questionable early in the week. I'm sure he'll play. And then Matt Judon, the linebacker, has an illness for Baltimore. Now, Diggs and Beasley were both limited but played well last week, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. And Tremaine Edmonds has a hamstring, as well as Ed Oliver. They were both limited but practiced this week, so it sounds like they're pretty healthy. I think this team is it's going to be a full-strength game from what I can see. I'm going to go first this time action. I really like Baltimore here, and it's not that I love the Bills. We've been talking about it for 2 years. I love this team. I want McDermott to do well. I love Josh Allen for president. He's my guy. I just don't like the matchup here. The Ravens defense is really good, and I think they're gonna, their secondary is excellent. And so I think that's going to slow down Diggs and the attack. And more importantly, Buffalo's not good against the run. So,
Mhm.
Obviously, if Buffalo can get some quick scores and get up, make Lamar Jackson throw the football, maybe. maybe they're going to win the game. I took the money line already, actually. I took it a little too low at plus 117. I guess it's up to 123 now, but I'll definitely would take those points in this case. Would love a field goal, but wasn't be able to get it early enough.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was kicking myself for missing out on the three also.
Yeah.
And I too bet the money line already on the Ravens. I think that, the Bills probably should have lost last week.
Yep.
And the narrative is among these not first time. I know this is his second time in the playoffs, but these young quarterbacks playing the playoffs don't quite have the same experience as a lot of their competitors. And going up against Lamar Jackson, this will be his third season playing in the playoffs. So, and he finally got that first win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just comes down to that Ravens running game. They have been just on an uptick lately, and giving Dobbins the rock, same handicap as last week,
Of
giving
course.
Dobbins the rock and facing off against this Bills rush defense. I think they're set up to have a ton of success. And you touched on it too. The Ravens defense, number one in scoring defense this year. And I think that they'll be able to hold down the Bills a little bit. I do like it as a lower scoring game as well.
Mm-hmm. So you do like it under the 50?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't really, did I already bet that? No, not yet. But I do like that too. I think that to me, just like, and I was surprised that the Titans didn't score more,
Hmm.
but it's really a matter of ball control. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the same situation, except it's a quarterback, not a running back. The Ravens aren't one-sided in their defense. They can stop the pass and the run. So all they got to do is get some scores, get in the end zone a couple times, and they can just squeeze that clock, just like they did against the Titans, and then make Josh Allen beat you. And yes, Diggs is a great player, but Marcus Peters, Jimmy Smith, they got some cornerbacks over there. It's going to be a lot tougher than he had last week, that's for sure.
Hmm.
All right, let's move to Sunday. You've got Cleveland, the chosen one, and I forgot to mention Cleveland hasn't won a game in the playoffs in forever. I think it was the last time they won was Belichick was the coach or something like that. I mean, like in the
Probably.
90s. So, and that's obviously the really was the Ravens now. You know what I mean? Like, so kudos. Sorry, Mikey, I missed in the beginning. They did deserve the win. I mean, they get their big win. Now they're going to go to Kansas City at 3:05 on Sunday Eastern. Kansas City opened as a 10-point favorite at home, 56-point total. It's about there, anywhere between 10 and 10 and a half. Now it's up to 57-point total. Going to this game, the handicap usually for the Browns is the running game, right? And Cincinnati or Kansas City is going to, not be able to stop the run per se.
Hmm.
I was really concerned with that defense by Cleveland. Do you think it was a prevent defense or what was going on? They got lit up by an inferior passing attack. So what's going to happen this week? So I don't really have that many injuries. The guys did come off the COVID list, the guys I had mentioned earlier, the cornerback Denzel Ward and stuff, but
Hmm.
I'm a little concerned they didn't come out completely healthy either. They've got Conklin on with the hamstring, and there are some hamstring injuries over on the Kansas City side, but 10's a lot of points, but I think Kansas City's going to win this game, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have a really hard time convincing myself that laying 10 with Kansas City is a good idea here. I think we've
Right.
touched on it throughout the last 2 months, but they've now not covered in 8 straight games to close out the season. I
Right.
think one game, the game against the Saints, you could argue one way or another, but was really probably a push against the closing line of three. But
Right.
I mean, they're not blowing their opponents away. And I have every expectation that Cleveland is going to be able to score in this game as well.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly think that total of 57 now is attainable,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to see me going over it. But um, I think one angle that I have looked to in this game is playing the Kansas City team total over. Last
Okay.
I checked, it was about 33 and a half, and I think you could still get to that without having to lay too much juice.
Okay.
And that's the way I'm playing this. I would certainly have a lean towards the Browns at plus 10, though. I think they're going to have their ability to score, too. Um, I don't really see that Kansas City is going to get a ton of stops on this team.
What about a first half Cleveland spread bet? I mean,
Hmm.
to me, I don't know. Kansas City last year, it's not the same team exactly,
Right.
but they came out of the gates so slow last year all the time. So I don't know. I can see it either way. This year, it seems like they've been going out of the gates early and then trying to like hold the other team off. But the thing about the Browns is they're going to come ready to play. I mean, they're not there
Yeah.
just to make Baker Mayfield commercials. I mean, they're ready to go.
Do you think that there's any chance that Cleveland comes out flat in this game, thinking to themselves, all right, we got our win, we'll get them next year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that you mentioned it when we talked about the other game. I mean, the Steelers, not just statistically, I mean, they move the ball at will on this team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I mean, that's kind of surprising. I thought that Garrett and the guys would be a little bit better against Ben, and they got a lot of gifts. I mean, it wasn't like incredible plays by the Browns. They were ready to play, but the Steelers weren't. I don't think Kansas City's going to make that mistake. So I agree, there could be a little flatness, but more importantly, I think Kansas City's not going to take them lightly like the Steelers did.
Yeah.
So,
And that Cleveland pass defense, 25th ranked in pass
yeah,
DVOA. And you also consider that 2 games this season, by my memory, were played there on Lake Erie with like gale force winds. So that
right,
probably buoyed these numbers even. And this is probably actually a little bit better than what their reality is.
right,
So
right.
I
Well,
think
now
that Chiefs
you're talking me in the Chiefs now.
Chiefs team total. Wags, just get after their scoring. I mean,
Chiefs, yeah, yeah,
don't want to go over 57, but I certainly think that the Chiefs will score 33 and a half.
yeah. That sounds good. Sounds good. All right, the last game, I think the Baltimore Buffalo game was going to be a great game, but this game should be one for the ages. They definitely put it in the right slot. It's the
Mm-hmm.
6:40 Eastern time on Sunday. Tampa going to New Orleans. Brady versus Breeze. New Orleans open as a 3-point favorite at home. I actually saw it, and I don't know when this was action. It was 5.5 on my screen. I don't know
Yeah.
where that was, but I'm sad I missed it. Um, but now that the total's 51.5, now it's still at the 3 and then 52. This is a tough one, action. Obviously, New Orleans dominated them twice during the regular season, but this Tampa team is on a roll, and besides the defense, the offense is playing really well. Not a lot of injuries to speak of, except for Alex Kappa for Tampa, which is noted. He's out. I'm assuming Ronald Jones is going to play this week. And then on the New Orleans side, I mean, they still have that Trey Hendrickson defensive end was questionable. Patrick Robinson a little dinged up, and also Latavius Murray. Well, this is a tough one, action. I like the Bucks. I like the Bucks here, and it's not because of Tom Brady. I think that they're going to be able to score, and I don't know if the Saints can. And I like
Mhm.
the game under. I did bet the under 51.5 already.
Yeah, I was looking at the total. I guess we'll start with the total. I was looking at that as well, but then I looked and saw that it actually opened at 49, which was interesting to me because I expected, like you, this being a divisional matchup and the third time around, that the Tampa Bay and Saints defenses would probably have a leg up against their opposing offenses. But the move up from 49 to 51 and a half now scares me a tick. And I'm going to kind of monitor the total and see how that goes throughout the week.
Right.
But as far as the side goes, I agree. I lean to Tampa Bay here. I actually played them 3.5. I know those are long gone now, but I still think that there's some value at 3, despite both of the outcomes this year. I think the second game really was the Bucks were hamstrung by the loss of the all-world guard Ali Marpet, who was like the anchor in that offensive line.
Right.
So I think that the margin in that game, the Saints won by 35 points in Tampa
Yeah.
Bay. For those of you who don't recall, I think you can kind of throw that one out, and I believe that it's going to be played a lot closer to their first matchup, which
Right.
again was still 11-point margin, but Tampa Bay played them a lot closer in the first time.
Right. Yeah. It's just. I mean, the Saints obviously didn't have to work too hard last week against the Bears, especially on defense. The key matchup is the defensive line to me for the Saints against the offensive line of Tampa,
Yeah.
and they looked so good last week against Washington. I know they're different schemes and different approaches, but that scared me with the Saints, and they really haven't. They did have a couple games later in the year where they were running the ball, but this Tampa team doesn't really allow the run, so it's going to go on Breeze. It's going to be Breeze throwing, and it's going to be Brady throwing. And to be honest with you, I think Brady's not just a GOAT. He's a better thrower of the football right now, and they got good weapons. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'd like to be wrong. I had the Saints winning this game originally when I wrote up my article last week, but in seeing the two teams play, I think Tampa's going to do it. We'll see.
Wait, you'd like to be wrong, so you in your heart you want the Saints to win?
Yes.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I look, Tampa, it's not even the Tampa thing. I think that it's more Brady. Obviously, it's not like I'm anti-Brady, but Breeze has got
Yeah,
one Super Bowl. Let's get him one chance. They missed the last 3 years. They've gotten, somewhat
true.
screwed, somewhat bad situations. This is the year I thought they could break through. They weren't. I don't have them winning the Super Bowl, but
Hmm.
I mean, I think they can go up to Green Bay too and win. But either way, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Betting with your mind, it's better to go with the Bucks.
Yeah. I guess I am not sure how that Saints offense is going to fare against Tampa
Hmm.
defense because the performance last week against Washington really kind of gave me a little pause. I mean,
Yeah,
they're highly rated in DVOA, number
sure.
one against the rush, like you mentioned, and number five against the pass, but my eyes and my memory don't really tell me that's the real Tampa defense.
Well, did you see though? And I'm not saying you're wrong, but Heineke, and not to give him crown the guy. You want to crown him, crown him. But this guy, he was trapped in the pocket numerous
Hmm.
times, and then he's like a little
Darting
jitterbug
out.
getting out of
Yeah.
there for 20-yard gains or making throws. Breeze can't do that.
Yeah.
So
No doubt.
it was one of these things like if they actually got him down, or I mean, he made some incredible plays to extend drives and in third down that nobody can do. I mean, maybe Taysom Hill can do, but he can't throw the football. So I'm just saying, like, it's really the Saints are going to have to run the ball to win this game, and I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to be able to do it. But we'll see. See what happens.
Yeah. Fascinating. And Brees has never had to face Tom Brady in the postseason either. So
I know,
a
and
new
Brady
challenge.
has now beaten 17 teams. I don't know if you saw this stat. He's beaten 17 different teams in the NFL in the playoffs. The
Wow.
next quarterback has 16 wins in the playoffs, and that's Joe
Huh.
Monty. So
Wow.
that's just insane. I mean, so the Saints could be next. Let's review our best bets for this week. We both like Baltimore plus the 2.5, and I guess we both like the money line. We both
Hmm.
took that. We both like Tampa plus 3. I personally like the under in this game, the Tampa New Orleans game at 51.5, and actions all over Green Bay at minus 6.5, and the team total for the Chiefs at 33.5 over. Oh, it looks like he's putting on here. He's adding to my outline. He's adding to my outline. The Green Bay under 45.5 as well, and I agree with that because of the Rams. So
Yeah.
6 best bets this week. Let's win some money action.
Yeah. I like our card.
I do too. All right. Well, let's pause all this football talk and let's talk about our other love, man. We've got March Madness is almost here. It's 2 months away. We've got college hoops to start looking at. I know you've been betting. I haven't looked at anything until this week. So, some pretty exciting stuff in college basketball. I'm going to let you kick it off since I don't know anything. Tell me about what's going on in college hoops.
Well, I don't know if you heard Wegs, but there's a pandemic going on
What?
right now, and
There is?
that that has little effect on the college hoops season. There's at least one team, the Boston University Terriers. I don't know their
Barriers, yeah.
nicknames, but their university has mandated that all athletic performers while on campus, and that goes for their opponents, have to wear face coverings during competition.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm not sure if you've seen any highlights from the Boston games, but it's
I have
pretty
not.
wild to see that on TV, a 5-on-5 basketball game with face coverings.
Awesome. Well,
So
I do know that the Ivy League isn't playing this year, so
it's
we're not
correct.
going to get the Quakers or whoever, the Tigers from Princeton or something in there, the Crimson, I guess, right from Harvard. So there'll be some changes.
Yeah. So no edges identified yet from the Ivy League or the Boston program, but I have noticed, as you can imagine, there's very little to no fans in a lot of these games. And
Right.
throughout me tracking the games that have occurred so far, I believe that home court advantage in many cases is pretty much wiped away. I'm seeing a lot of road teams that are covering numbers that you probably wouldn't normally see. And you're seeing some depressed numbers too for
Hmm.
home teams that might normally be in an underdog spot. They probably aren't given as much advantage to that home court. So that's certainly something, at least in my handicapping, I've been gravitating more towards those road favorites, whereas in years past, I might not be so quick to jump at them.
Interesting.
And another major factor, just similar to the NFL and other pro sports we've seen through the pandemic, is that there's a weekly and sometimes daily schedule disruptions. You're seeing games that are being postponed and outright canceled on a pretty regular basis, as well as shuffling of the deck too. I believe last weekend it was Wright State or one of the teams in the local Midwest mid majors where they didn't know their opponent for Saturday afternoon until late on Friday. I think it was Loyola on Friday night, actually. They walked out of practice and then found out an hour later that they were playing a different opponent on Saturday. So a lot of shuffling the deck, which you can help identify some edges if you can understand those scheduling spots. And then the last one I want to touch on is those same mid-major conferences. A lot of them are playing in what is called a back-to-back format. So
I saw that.
One team will travel to a conference opponent and they'll stay there for a Friday, Saturday tilt and play them twice in a row in the same gym. And I've been following these very closely because I've seen a very good trend emerge where you see a lot of these opponents who might lose against the spread or even outright on the first night will turn around and whip their opponent on the second night because the coaches are making adjustments. So a little bit of a zigzag theory there, which you've seen in the NBA playoffs as well.
Nice. Well, yeah, I saw that. At least the Mountain West is doing that with Colorado State. I've seen other guys do it, and it's got to be confounding. And we were talking about it, but usually you have kind of benchmark games where you're going to play a team at a certain point in the season. You might get crushed, and then 2 weeks later or a month later, 2 months later, you play them again. You can kind of measure up the growth of a team. That's going to eliminate that in certain spots, especially for the elite programs, even within these smaller conferences. So it'll be interesting come the conference tournaments, if they do them conventionally, that you're not going to know as much as you think. I mean, maybe it'll help you in your zigzag now, but come the conference tournament, they haven't played them in 3 months or 2 months. It's going to be tough. So it'll be interesting. So what about the teams to watch? Now, I obviously, everybody in America knows the Zags are awesome, but they are, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, they are historically awesome. By far and away the number one team here. And I think Ken Pom would agree with my personal rankings. And this offense is just on another level this season. Scoring 123 points per 100 possessions. I don't recall where that ranks historically speaking in the last 20 years, but it's got to be up there in terms of offensive efficiency.
Right. And then you've got guys like Baylor, I've heard a lot about. Iowa, well, we know that because I go to the Four Shadows. They score a ton of points, but don't play any D. You've got Michigan. You've got a lot of Big Ten teams here. Illinois. You got Houston up there, which it's nice to see Kelvin Sampson just cranking them out down there. What teams so far this season have you been really excited to kind of track in terms of your betting so far?
I think Texas is one team that jumps out at me that has been a very big surprise. I was initially surprised that coach has hair this year.
I saw that. Shaka Smart. He decided to go away from the bald look. He went COVID and it's helped his team.
Yeah, I mean, Shaka Smart, who knew he could grow hair this year? He showed up and the team just totally flipped the script, and they're awesome. Despite a big loss at home. Yeah, they got beat last night at Texas Tech, but despite the loss, I think Texas has been a very big surprise in my mind going into this season so far.
Gotcha. Well, great. Well, normally what we do in this format for new listeners or people that have forgot, because we stopped talking so abruptly last year in March, we normally with college basketball go over, kind of some metrics. Action has his own index that he can share with us in future weeks. And then we try to identify spots, whether it's a zigzag situation like Action's saying, or maybe we just like certain teams and how they're playing. I do my own review of the Ken Pom rankings and kind of do my best. I'm not as good at, my predictions aren't as good as in football. Not that they were that great this year. So I picked out some games action that we can talk about. I'm not sure a lot of sometimes the other issue with our listeners is that unlike the NFL, these lines come out usually the day before.
Mhm.
So we're going to be talking about games that are a little further in advance, and so we have to do like an imputed line that Action does on his own with his algorithm. So it's kind of a guessed line. And usually when we see that line, if we see something higher or lower, depending on which side we want to be, then we know to jump on it. That's kind of how we talk about it.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. And actually, this season, I propose that we just move with the Ken Pom projections.
Okay.
I historically have noticed a lot of these odds makers are getting lazy and are just putting up numbers that Ken Pom does. So
Right, right.
you'll see oftentimes it's super close to the Ken Pom line.
Totally. Okay, well, let's talk the first one. This is an actual line. This is from tomorrow. The Big Ten does play a lot of games on Friday, so we'll talk about you know, Action loves the Friday night action. We know that. We didn't talk a lot during the college football season, but, he likes the Friday night action. We've got Wisconsin, who's going to Rutgers. That's tomorrow. And, Wisconsin's one of these road favorites that you're talking about is a short road favorite at -2. Talk to me. What's going on? You really like Wisconsin here?
I do, yeah. Which is kind of out of character for me. I usually like to throw shade on the Badgers, and
You
I
do.
love Rutgers actually. So a little bit out of character, but
Yeah,
both of these teams are coming off pitiful performances against the spread. At Wisconsin lost by 23 at Michigan earlier this
that's
week,
that's a beatdown.
and Rutgers is coming off their own beatdown against Ohio State of all teams at home by 11 last weekend. So both of them are going to be looking to get right, and I'm interested in playing the Badgers here. I've already bet them at -2, and my numbers show them as a 5-point edge in a neutral in this game. And
Okay.
again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of throwing out any home court advantage this season. And I really think that the Badgers front line has been impressive this year. You got Micah Potter, who's been playing well despite his little dust ups with the coaches. And I think that he's going to be able to bang on the inside with some of the Rutgers bigs and really hold his own on the glass. And the Wisconsin defense is as good as ever. They're eighth ranked in defensive efficiency, and
Right.
they've got some sharpshooters on the outside as well. So I'm looking at playing Wisconsin to get the road win in this one.
Nice. Well, first of all, it's nice to see Rutgers doing better.
Mm-hmm.
We were picking on them, especially in football, the last couple of years, but they've improved in both arenas. I do see them in at least my numbers, the top 40 in Ken Palm, so it's nice. But you did mention, if you mentioned this, that Ron Harper Jr., former Bull, he looks like he's got some injuries, so that's probably one of your parts of your handicap, right? He's been a really good player for them.
Yeah, Ron Harper is probably one of their leaders, and he's been playing the last couple of games, but certainly not the same player that he was pre-injury. And I think there's another player, another one of their guards as well, that's coming back from an injury. So they haven't quite got back up to their non-conference season form yet.
Right. I gotcha. Okay, well, good. I will say to our listeners, we do tend to talk a lot about the Big Ten. We are in Big Ten country quite a bit, but we will
Sure.
talk about other conferences. But right now, I'm going back to the Big Ten. So on Saturday, we've got the Illinois is playing Ohio State. Illinois is a 5-point favorite, at least our imputed total or imputed spread. And I just really like this team. I like to, I grew up an Illinois fan, way back in the day, the fighting Illini, flying Illini, and they were so good. And it's good to see them back. They've got a really good coach in Brad Underwood, who was like, he worked his way up from Stephen F. Austin, and now he's got a squad. Kofi Coburn's a beast in the middle. Love that team. I just think that Illinois is going to out-physical this team. I don't know about this 5 points, but I just like this team, and I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are fare pretty good against the spread. Ohio State 8-5 on the season against the number, and Illinois a very good 9-4 in their own right. And they've both been good in Big Ten play too.
Hmm.
Um, Surprisingly, though, because I didn't really have that high of expectations for this Ohio State Buckeye team, but they have been playing really well lately. Two
They have.
straight wins and covers. I mentioned the one on the road at Rutgers, and then they just beat Northwestern yesterday. And EJ Liddell, I think, is one of their big time players. He had a 20-point game the other night. But I think I'm with you in this one. I have been laying the points a lot with the Illini this season, and they're coming off of a really demoralizing loss at home on Sunday to Maryland. So I have every expectation that Illinois will look to bounce back in this one and kind of put a stamp on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, yeah, good. We're on the same side. Might be my first college hoops bet this year. Uh, I was liking this Pac-10 matchup here, Action. So Colorado, who's I guess pretty good this year, they're going to host Stanford on Saturday. It's looking like a 5-point favorite at home. I put the Buffs a really good basketball team, and they've struggled a little bit in conference play, but they're really good. They're a balanced team, whereas the Cardinal is just all defense. I mean, they're an incredible defense, 7th rated in the country. But I think the Buffs can get it done and definitely squeeze on Stanford on the defensive end as well. So I think I'd lay the 5 points.
Yeah, they this one is in Boulder, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's in Boulder. That's right. Not that home court matters to me in my handicapping,
right.
But
altitude.
yeah, there's probably some degree of points there, but
Sure.
the Stanford team has been impressive to me. I watched them play in the Maui Classic in Asheville this season, and or I guess Maui, and they impressed me against North Carolina. And my numbers have this one as closer to a 3-point edge for the Buffaloes. So if I had to play this one, it would probably be with Stanford at that number. They do play really good defense. I know you mentioned it, but they only allow 90 points per 100 possession, which is good for 7th ranked. And they also are really good defending against field goal percentage on the flip side. So I would probably lean to Stanford, but I don't fault you for playing the home Buffaloes.
Sure. Okay, well, this team might have beat me to the punch here. Texas Tech will be hosting Baylor this weekend on Saturday. Baylor's this really great team. Everybody's talking them up. I love Chris Beard. We love Chris Beard. Chris Beard won Action so much money a couple of years ago in the Final Four when they made that run. And we're projecting this as they're going to be a home dog, probably 4-point dog at home. I just love the way this team plays. They're scrappy. They're not probably as talented as Baylor, but they play great defense, and this team peaks at the right time because Chris Beard is an incredible coach. Now, they won last night at Texas. They came back from like a 12-point deficit kind of late in that half. So maybe it's a little bit too, everybody knows they're going to be like this, but I'd still like Texas Tech if they're hosting Baylor to kind of pull the upset in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one that I probably can't join you with, and I'm going to be looking to play the flip side here. This Baylor team is phenomenal. They kind of have flown under the radar in the last week or two, just because I think they had a little bit of a COVID pause there and didn't quite hit the schedule as much as some of the other Big 12 teams. And despite that, they are just kicking butt and taking names this season. I'm looking here at their game log. I mean, they've won every game by double digits this season. The lowest being 11, which they beat Iowa State by, and they just dusted off Texas Christian by 18 and Oklahoma by 15 the game before that. And my numbers actually have Baylor as 9 points better than Texas Tech, if you can believe it. So
I can't believe it, but yeah, I know.
I've been laying points with Baylor all season, and I probably will here, especially if the number's 4.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. I will look myself. Probably won't bet now, so you're talking me off that one. That's good. So here we go. This is the flip side. I'm trying to fade Baylor here, and I'm tell you why, because I know that they're really good. But traditionally, they struggle against these teams. So Kansas is going to Baylor on Monday night, a big Monday classic. Kansas is projected as an 8-point road dog here. I hate Bill Self, but in this case, I mean, they got to go through Kansas to win this title. I like this spot at least to keep it close. But I guess you're going to talk me off and say Baylor's the best, huh?
Yeah, probably. I mean, this one is projected to be a little bit higher, though, 8 points, according to Ken Palm. And let's see, let me switch up the teams here real quick. And I really just have Baylor as, again, a 9-point favorite facing off against the Jayhawks. So not quite as big of an edge for me. I typically don't play edges in the 1-point range.
Right.
Look to go a little bit higher than that. But Just looking at the schedule here, it looks like Kansas has Iowa State on Saturday, which is down this year tremendously from what their normal levels are. And just knowing that Baylor has a big game Saturday against Texas Tech, I think that you might be able to catch them in a good letdown spot here, coming off of the big game versus Texas Tech, where Kansas can probably coast a little bit on Saturday and look ahead to Baylor a little bit. So I could see this being a play for me when we get there.
Okay. Okay. The last one we don't have a spread for, but UCLA is going to Oregon. I love the Pac-12, even though everybody hates the Pac-12. I love those guys in basketball. But I like UCLA in this game going to Oregon. Oregon traditionally is the power in the Pac-12, ever since Arizona's. They're okay. They've kind of tailed off. But, this UCLA team, unlike most McCronin teams, is they can score. They can score the ball, which is, I don't know what he's doing. He's usually like Mr. Ground and Pound guy. Oregon's a really good basketball team, definitely, but I don't know. I kind of like UCLA to come up on this one. We don't have a spread right now, but I would back them if I'm assuming they're going to be a dog. So, maybe it's going to be 7 or 8 points. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this one actually, talk about schedule adjustments. Ken Pom didn't even have a game for UCLA at Oregon. So
Right.
not really sure how that came about, but
Well,
it is on the
Oregon, I
schedule.
think I think Oregon's game on Saturday is postponed or something. So maybe
Okay.
they have COVID issues. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I did see that there was another game postponed, so which likely led to this one being thrown together pretty quickly. But the one thing that I too like UCLA and I've been impressed with the way they're playing this season. But the one thing that gives me a little pause is they just recently lost their star player, Chris Smith, on January 2nd. I guess it was
Okay.
12 days ago now, but he tore his ACL and
Oh,
he's out for the season. So he was their number one scorer, and I haven't honestly watched them since the injury, so I'm not sure who's really filling that void. But I do think that UCLA is worth a look in this one, depending on what the spread is. I've
sure.
got Oregon as 3 points better on a neutral, so
Okay.
close
Oh,
matchup.
gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that kind of wraps up this segment of college basketball. We'll have a little bit more as the weeks go on, as kind of, football kind of shrinks down and just less games. So we'll have more content for college basketball for you hoop guys out there. And then come the tournament, obviously that's all we'll be talking about. So it's an exciting time of the year. We are hopefully going to do a trip. We'll talk off air about that. We're hopefully going to do a trip for March Madness, which anybody can join us. We're going to have a good time, try to hit circus, stadium swim and everything. And I'll have my T-shirt on. Action. Have my T-shirt.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a T-shirt for other people who want to show up. So
Yeah. Any of the listeners want to join us, Circus Swim? Be
that's
there, be
right.
square.
That's right. Be there, be square. So, but okay. Well, we got some good picks for the divisional round. We'll check it out. See if we can stay hot, and
Mhm.
hopefully this weekend will be some more great games.
Yeah, I can't wait for these. The divisional weekend is always, in my opinion, one of the best sports weekends of the year. And we have four great matchups again this year, so I can't wait for it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll follow me at Wegspool at on Instagram and Twitter. Follow the Side Action Podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter.
And follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right. Have a great evening. Enjoy the weekend.
Good luck.